He believes that Barack Obama was the Antichrist, that Hillary Clinton was part of the Ku Klux Klan, and the Trump campaign has been happy to have a man who was part of a murderous cult that was accused of stabbing and beheading people in the early 90s stand behind the President of the United States. So that's what he means by I'm healing divisions. Okay, so that's who is standing behind President Trump. Kate, let's talk about who's standing next to President Trump. He threatened to shut down the government over funding the wall that was supposed to be paid for by Mexico. He talked about ripping up NAFTA. And while he spent 20 minutes going after the media, recounting Charlottesville, he barely talked about tax reform. So for those globalists who talk about who have won recently, Steve Bannon's out, you got Mnuchin there, Gary Cohn there, Dina, Jared, Ivanka. Where are they in all this?
Well, a lot of interesting developments here. I mean, first of all, the people I talk to, and I've focused on tax policy in my reporting because it's an area where business is very interested. And as you know, the Business Roundtable and others have been funding commercials, some of them on this air, to kind of talk about the need to change the tax code. There's an increasing consensus it's not they can do some of the spade work, set themselves up for 2018, but it's going to be extremely hard, especially given the divisions between the president and Republican leaders to get this done. They don't have a draft of a bill yet. They've turned it over to the committees. That's going to start in earnest probably after Labor Day. In terms of the moderates, it's very interesting. I mean, I was reading a blog post over the weekend saying that with Steve Bannon gone, himself a former Goldman person, although briefly, it's more the Goldman Sachs presidency than ever because of the presence of these moderates.
Show me where. I heard that argument all weekend long. Listen, they're there behind the scenes, the great work they're doing. Show me where that great work was last night.
Well, I mean, I think at the moment, those people are on the sidelines, right? But as we were talking about, Trump changes his mind frequently. And when he goes to one of these rallies, he's trying to razz up certain less globalist-minded interests and go back to some of his campaign promises that he found to be incredibly effective. Now, today, for all we know, he's huddling with people like this, talking about tax policy, talking about other more moderate plans. The NAFTA issue may just be rhetoric. It's hard to know.
Here's the problem. Like, if the president, if he was like an improv comic or he was doing a rap freestyle, it's fine for him to just go and have a big rally and say whatever he wants. But there's policies that's supposed to be passed. So when he gets an audience, he gets a global audience to watch him, he doesn't spend time on policy. He doesn't
about that's not what he cares about. Has he ever been someone who cares about policy, or was the campaign and his reign based on breaking down the system and fighting and power? Because right now, what he did last night is exactly what he wants to do.
I think it was that, and to the extent that there was sort of a coherent ideology there, it was probably more Bannon's than anybody else's.
I don't think he ever had one. I think it's a personality cult, and that's all he wants.
All right, I want to go back to Kristen Welker, an exclusive on what President Trump's former rival, Hillary Clinton, has to say. This is pretty revealing. Morning Joe aired a piece of Hillary Clinton's new book coming out in September. What can you tell us?
This is a highly anticipated memoir, Steph. As you point out, Morning Joe got the exclusive first excerpts. This is Hillary Clinton really explaining from her own point of view what happened. That's the title of her memoir. This is not going to be an analysis of the 2016 race. This is going to be a first-person account. And in one of the most notable excerpts from the book, Secretary Clinton talks about what it was like for her during that second debate when then candidate Trump followed her around on the debate stage. Take a listen.
CARE Act, and I'm going to fix it because I agree with you. Premiums have gotten too high, co-pays, deductibles, the highest priority of the next president.
When the world heard him brag about groping women. Now we were on a small stage, and no matter where I walked, he followed me closely, staring at me, making faces. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He was literally breathing down my neck.
It talks about the shock that she felt when she lost. Of course, as we all remember, most of the polls showed that she was going to win the race. And she talks about the fact that it's as though she let down her millions of followers and those who voted for her, Steph. So it's a pretty first-person, personal account of what happened.
All right, I got to get my panel to respond. You know, it was funny. Last night, we didn't hear much about Hillary Clinton. I was going, great. I'm tired of litigating that. And then an excerpt this morning. But when I heard it, it took you back to that second debate with him looming behind her. I don't know. I think I would have turned around and said, why don't you back off?
It was incredibly off-putting to watch at the time, and I agree. It brought me back to that moment too. It's actually very interesting, her sort of reflection on that situation, because I do think many of us have been in situations where people are sort of flexing their power, subtly or not subtly, making